The reason Snow White is called Snow White in this version of the film, because of course she is not white as snow, is because she and her family go through a snowstorm and survive the snowstorm, and so it's a mark of her resilience. That's why she's called Snow White.
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Okay, what just happened? Disney's brand new Snow White remake didn't just underperform, it faceplanted. Like, we're talking full-blown disaster mode. Fans are dragging it, critics are baffled, and the internet? Oh, they're having a field day. And right at the center of this storm, Rachel Zegler. This was supposed to be her big breakout moment, but instead she's getting blamed by literally everyone. Over interviews, attitude, even the plot. But here's the thing, this isn't just another celebrity getting roasted.
Congrats on the film. How does it feel to finally have it come out?
Feels wonderful.
Feels wonderful.
What went down behind the scenes, the insane fan reactions, and how Disney tried to quietly clean up the mess, it's way bigger than you think. Stick around, because once you see what really went wrong with Snow White, you're gonna realize this flop was written in the stars. And hey, if you're into celebrity drama, wild studio decisions, and watching Hollywood fumble in real time, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss this one.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
All right, before we unpack the chaos, let's rewind for just a second. Disney's been on this live-action remake kick for a while now. You know the drill. They've turned everything from The Lion King to Aladdin into CGI-packed nostalgia trips. Some were hits, some not so much. And then came Snow White, the OG of all princesses, the one that basically built the Disney empire back in 1937. So naturally, expectations sky high. Disney cast Rachel Zegler, fresh off West Side Story, super talented, young, a rising star. They pitched the remake as a bold reimagining, more empowering, more modern, more 2025 vibes, you know? They ditched the prince subplot, reworked the dwarves into magical forest creatures, and basically flipped the whole fairy tale on its head.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious.
And listen, on paper, maybe that sounds like an interesting twist, but from the moment it was announced, people had feelings. Fans of the classic were already side-eyeing it, critics were curious, and the internet was split between "Yas Queen" and "Why are we fixing what isn't broken?" That's when the red flags started popping up, and things went from bold creative risk to full-blown PR nightmare, real quick. So here's where the drama really started simmering.
She's not gonna be safe with the prince, and she's not gonna be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
The moment Rachel Zegler started doing press for the movie, things got awkward, fast. First, she called the original 1937 Snow White story weird, said the prince was basically a creep, and even joked about how she never really liked the original movie. Yeah? And you could feel the internet collectively side-eyeing the whole project. Fans weren't just annoyed. They felt like the new Snow White was actively dunking on the classic one. Like, why are we throwing shade at the movie that literally started Disney's entire animation legacy?
Snow White by the Brothers Grimm. Great little fairy tale. Leave it as is. If you don't like it, make your own one.
It's not been rewritten, though.
It has been rewritten.
When Rachel says, so we're not doing that this time.
And it didn't stop there. Behind-the-scenes photos leaked of the new dwarves, except they weren't dwarves anymore. They were this super diverse group of full-sized actors labeled as magical creatures, and it completely blindsided everyone. Even Peter Dinklage, yes, that Peter Dinklage, called it out, saying the whole thing felt like a contradiction. So now you've got diehard Disney fans upset, casual viewers confused, and a growing group online just straight up roasting the movie before it even had a trailer. And Rachel, instead of clarifying or easing concerns, her tone came off a little smug. It felt like she was defending a movie people hadn't even seen yet while insulting the one they actually loved.
You're replacing jobs that people could have as little people. Okay. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, it's for dwarfs, you know?
It was one of those slow burn controversies that just kept building. One interview clip at a time, one headline at a time, until the vibe completely shifted from curious anticipation to, oh no, this is gonna crash and burn. All right, so the movie finally dropped. And just like people feared, it was a mess. Let's talk numbers real quick, because this is where things get brutal.
Rachel Zegler, who stars as Snow White, condemned Prince Charming as weird and a stalker, adding that she hates the original. Nice start. Leaked photos from a set revealed that the 7 dwarves had been sensationally axed, replaced by multiracial, gender non-specific, magical humans.
You know what? Maybe Disney does. Maybe you're a tool, you're a pawn in this film. You didn't write it, you didn't direct it. You have nothing to do with the creation of Snow White.
Right.
You should shut up and do the job.
Disney reportedly spent upwards of $150 million on this movie. That's not including marketing, which probably pushed the total even higher. But when opening weekend rolled around, it barely made a dent. The box office numbers were so low, analysts were already calling it one of Disney's biggest flops before the first week was even over. Like, imagine all the hype, all the controversy, all that money, just for the film to belly flop into theaters. And the reviews? Critics were divided. Some tried to be generous, said it was ambitious or a fresh take, but most just couldn't ignore the clunky writing, weird tonal shifts, and a storyline that felt more like a lecture than a fairy tale. But the real damage came from the fans.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
Wow, what a scene.
I don't need your business.
Wait, feminist Conor McGregor.
Who the fuck is that
guy? Audience scores were harsh. Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, social media threads, you name it. People were not vibing. Words like soulless, preachy, and unwatchable were thrown around a lot. And Disney? Dead silent. No big "thank you for supporting us" posts. No celebratory cast interviews. Just an awkward quiet, almost like they knew. Honestly, it wasn't just a bad box office. It was a full-on reality check.
I interpret people's feelings about this film as passion for it, and what an honor to be able to be part of something that people are so passionate about. We're not always going to have the same feelings as everyone around us, meaning the entire viewing.
Yes.
And all we can do is put our best foot forward. By that, you mean entitled and browbeating and proselytizing.
Disney gambled on a bold new direction, and the audience hit unsubscribe. So how did it all go so wrong? I mean, Disney isn't new to remakes. They've printed money off these things before. But with Snow White, it was like every decision just pushed audiences further away. First off, remake fatigue is real. People are kinda over these recycled stories with glossy VFX and none of the original magic. But this one wasn't just a remake. It was a reinvention. And that's where it started to unravel. Disney wanted to make Snow White more modern, more empowered, and sure, that sounds great in theory. But instead of building on what made the original so timeless, they basically scrapped it. Like, they took a fairy tale and tried to turn it into a TED Talk. No prince, no love story, no classic songs, just this awkwardly serious tone with a lead character who seemed to be apologizing for being in a fairy tale at all.
Our rights are on the line, folks. Our reproductive rights.
Ugh.
Come on.
Okay, Cheshire Cat.
Go vote blue. And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
You know, what's really interesting about this is not that this is something new. Rachel Zegler has been doing this for a very long
And here's the kicker. When you change everything people loved about a story, then market it like, this is the better version, it doesn't come off as progressive, it comes off as pretentious. Add in Rachel's interviews that felt tone-deaf, the redesign of iconic characters, and this overall attitude of, we know better than you. And suddenly, the movie wasn't just a film. It was a symbol of everything people feel is going wrong with modern Hollywood. It didn't feel like entertainment anymore. It felt like a lecture wrapped in CGI. And the worst part? It didn't even resonate with the new audience Disney was trying to reach, so they lost the old fans and failed to win over the new ones. That's not just a creative misstep. That's a total disconnect. All right, now we gotta talk about the elephant in the room, Rachel Zegler. Look, it's not all her fault. She didn't direct the movie, she didn't write the script, and she definitely didn't greenlight a $150 million budget. But somehow, she ended up taking most of the heat. And here's why. Her interviews became the face of the controversy. Every time she spoke about the movie, it just seemed to backfire. Like when she said Snow White was not going to be saved by the prince, or that the original story was weird and dated, those clips went viral fast. And people weren't just disagreeing, they were mad.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that.
It felt like she was mocking a story that meant a lot to generations of fans, even if her intention was to promote a more modern message. The way she said it came off dismissive, even kinda arrogant. And once those sound bites hit TikTok and Twitter, game over. Creators started stitching her clips, memes exploded, and the narrative quickly became, she hates the movie she's starring in. Whether that was true or not didn't even matter at that point. The perception was locked in. And to be fair, she's super talented. Her vocals? Insane. Acting chops? Undeniable.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely, when it got announced, it was a huge...
You mean your guess is as good as mine
ethnicity? It was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were...
But in this case, her PR presence clashed hard with what audiences were already skeptical about. Some people even started saying Disney set her up to fail, like they threw her into this reboot without preparing her for how iconic and protected the original Snow White really is. So while Rachel was supposed to be the star, she accidentally became the scapegoat. Man, the internet did not hold back. The second those Rachel interview clips started making the rounds, social media lit up like a bonfire. TikTok, X-Twitter, YouTube Shorts, everyone had something to say, and most of it, brutal. People were stitching her videos with side eyes, sarcastic commentary, and straight-up roasts. One creator went viral for doing a side-by-side of Rachel saying she never liked the original Snow White, while dressed as Snow White, lip-syncing the OG lines and rolling her eyes the whole time. Savage. Then came the memes. Oh, the memes. There were edits showing Rachel fighting the patriarchy, while Snow White's animal friends just watched in confusion.
This has been such a catastrophic nightmare for Disney that Disney has decided to cancel the premieres of Snow White.
I know, she's dumb. She's young and she's dumb. But maybe she'll learn. You know what? Whatever I called her, it worked.
The premiere events obviously are times when the actors and actresses can hype themselves and the product and can speak to the press on the red carpet, can be photographed in gowns and saying funny, quirky things.
She's had a long history of saying woke, annoying things. Our new Snow White.
Others compared the original dwarves to the new magical creatures, like it was some kind of weird evolution chart. Hashtags like Not My Snow White, Snow Woke, and Disney Disaster started trending. And it wasn't just the casual internet trolls. Longtime Disney fans, family vloggers, even movie critics were joining the conversation. Everyone had an opinion, and most of it boiled down to, why did they mess with a classic? The vibe was clear. The internet felt Disney had taken something beloved and turned it into a weird, preachy parody. And Rachel? She was the face plastered across every meme, edit, and hot take. Honestly, at one point it felt like the backlash was doing more promo for the movie than Disney itself, but in the worst way possible. So how did Disney respond to all this? Well, let's just say they tried to hit the panic button quietly. First, they pushed the release date back. Officially, it was to perfect the visuals or whatever, but let's be real. We all knew it was damage control. The backlash was already boiling, and they needed time to figure out how to stop the bleeding.
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them,
Disney's saying, we've had enough buzz creation for this movie.
that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Then came the promo shift. Suddenly, Rachel Zegler, who was literally the face of this film, started disappearing from press tours, fewer interviews, less front and center spotlight. It felt like Disney was slowly phasing her out of the conversation. They dropped a new trailer, totally re-edited, with a much softer tone, less girl boss fairy tale revolution, more magical forest vibes, like they were trying to recapture some of that old school Disney charm. Oh, and remember those magical creatures that replaced the dwarves? Word is they reshot some scenes to tone that down too. It was like they were scrambling to undo choices they had loudly defended just a few months before. Even the marketing got weirdly quiet. No big push, no viral campaign, just a lot of vague, "it's coming soon" messaging. It was like Disney was hoping people would either forget about the controversy or come around once the movie dropped. But by then, the internet had already made up its mind. The damage was done, and Disney's last-minute cleanup came off more like a cover-up. It felt like they knew this wasn't going to be a win. They just wanted to soften the blow. So now that the dust is settling, what does this actually mean? Like, beyond just one movie flopping, this whole Snow White situation, it exposed something way bigger. For starters, Disney's live-action remake strategy, might finally be wearing thin. Sure, they had mega hits like The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, but more recent ones, Mulan, Peter Pan and Wendy, Pinocchio, all flops or straight-to-streaming snooze fests. And now, Snow White just added gasoline to the fire. Studios are realizing you can't just slap live action on a classic and expect audiences to show up anymore, especially if you're overhauling everything people loved in the first place. But there's more. This flop also sparked major debates in Hollywood about how to do modernization right. Like, how do you make these old stories feel relevant without completely alienating the fan base? A lot of folks are pointing fingers at Disney's recent habit of using iconic characters to push messaging first, storytelling second, and when the story feels like an afterthought, audiences check out. And then there's Rachel Zegler. No doubt she's talented, and this definitely won't be the end of her career, but this role, it changed how people see her. Public perception took a hit, and it might take a minute before studios trust her as the lead for a major tentpole again. So yeah, this wasn't just a PR mess or a bad opening weekend, it was a signal that even the biggest studios with the biggest IPs can still crash and burn if they lose touch with their audience. Alright, here's where I land on all this. Do I think Rachel Zegler deserves all the blame? That's way too easy. She made some tone-deaf comments, sure, but this entire project was messy from the start. Disney had no clear vision. They wanted to reinvent a beloved story without actually respecting what made it special in the first place. And when things started going sideways, they kind of just doubled down, then backpedaled. Rachel just happened to be the face of it all. And unfortunately, when you're the face of a failing movie, the internet's gonna treat you like the villain, fair or not. But here's the thing. This whole saga shows exactly what happens when a studio tries to cash in on nostalgia without understanding the nostalgia. You can modernize a story without erasing its soul. You can empower characters without making them smug. And you can push messages without making the entire movie feel like a lecture. Snow White deserved better. Rachel probably deserved a better rollout. And audiences? They deserved a story that respected both their intelligence and their childhood memories. But hey, that's just me. What do you think? Was this movie doomed from the start? Could it have been saved with better marketing? Or was the core idea just broken? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know if you saw this train wreck coming or if it caught you off guard too.